Hello and welcome to The Price is Right. You are the next contestant. So come on down. Yeah, so this is just another going to be King of Avalon instructional video. So we're going to go ahead and get back into troop formations. Apparently, I did a very poor job. Thank you, Darth Rage. So this video, I'm actually going to go more in depth on troop formations. I'll explain all the breaking down of why I'm saying the things I'm saying. There's a great video out there called A Follower. That's where I learned pretty much most of my knowledge on this, and then pretty much took what I learned from there and experimented. Did a lot of killing in my day. I'm an old man now, I guess. And now there's better ways of doing things to get the job done. I'm lazy and I don't like to do it the best way just because I don't really need to in my situation that I'm in currently in the kingdom. But if you're going to be doing some KVK, if you're allowed to go ahead and get into the towers or throne, I can explain the best way to form up your troops, keep your guys alive, and then we will go from there. So basically, again, 4 types of troops. You have your infantry, you'll have your cavalry, bowmen, siege. Can I say that there's the most important troop type? No. Can I say there's the least important troop type? You already know the answer. It's siege. So, let's go ahead and let's talk about the different stats of the troops. So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at infantry first of all. And we are going to talk from there about their stats. So should be coming up now. You'll see their stats. So here, this is a tier 10 troop for infantry. Has health of 14, attack of 6, and defense of 16. So infantry, gonna put it out there. These guys are up front. They're gonna be soaking up your damage, and they're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage themselves. 6, compared to other troop tiers, is a good amount of attack. But if you're going T10 up to T10, 6 pretty much takes infantry and puts them where they need to be, soaking damage. So within infantry, there's 2 types. You have warriors, which is an increased defense against archers. And then you have spearmen. Spearmen have an increased defense against light cavalry. So the way I've been taught to think about this is archers are your bowmen. Bowmen do the damage. So your destroyers, your warriors in this case, for your tier, are going to be taking the damage first. These guys are the very first guys in line. Now, we'll get into it later, but there is a type of siege that if you want to use them, they'll actually start in front of these warriors, and they'll take damage first. The thing to keep in mind with that is they're not doing any damage to the enemy troops at all. All they're doing is they're dying before your warriors die. Now, your warriors can do some damage. So if you want to put your siege in the back of the train behind your bowmen and just let them kill the traps from the back, they're not going to take any losses. You're not going to have to worry about retraining them, and you can put more warriors up front against the archers. So warriors take damage first. Then you go to your spearmen. Spearmen have increased defense against light cavalry. So these guys are still in the infantry lineup, so they're still first if you're not having any of the special type of siege that I'll talk about, but they're going to be behind your warriors. So these guys are going to take the damage from the cavalry. So behind infantry is going to be your cavalry, and there's going to be 2 types of cavalry. So these spearmen will be right behind your warriors, and they'll be taking damage second. So if you have like a mix-up of your different tiers and your different types, then you'll be able to arrange it so that your T10s aren't dying at all. So the way you can think of it is, if you have, let me just show you to help yourself and to help me. So in front of the line you'll have the warriors. If you have a tier 8 in front of a tier 10, this tier 8 will take damage first before your T10 will take damage. So your T8's cheaper to produce troops, lower power. If you put them in front of your T10s, not necessarily in front, like when you're setting it up, but they will be in front in the simulated battle, these guys will die first before your T10s. So if you have a lower tier of the same type, the lower tier will die first. So if you have, let's say, a tier 2 is a warrior, then the tier 2 will die, then you'll have T8s. They'll be soaking up some damage while your bowmen and cavalry are trying to do some damage. Then if you can't kill the enemy fast enough, then your T8s will start taking damage after the T2 are like completely dead. And then once the T8s are completely dead, then it'll go into your T10s. Now with your spearmen, these guys are going to be taking damage second. So these guys are going to be going up against your cavalry. So they'll be going up against the enemy's second line of defense. So just think of it like that. Again, same thing with the tiers within the spearmen. If you have a lower tier like a T7 or T6, that's a spearman, and they'll take the damage before the T9s will. So if you want to look at stats of a T9, slightly lower than a T10, but it technically is a different type of troop. So moving on to your cavalry. Cavalry is going to be your second line of defense. Here we have light cavalry, increased attack against archers, and then our T8 is our heavy cavalry, increased attack against warriors. So think about it like this. Your mounted destroyers or your heavy cavalry are going to be up front. They're going to be ahead of your T10s, your light cavalry. But they're taking damage from two different people. So actually, scratch that. Your T10s will be up front. They'll be the first line of cavalry. You'll have the light cavalry, and then you'll have the heavy cavalry. So the light cavalry, since they're going up against archers, they're dying first, because the archers, the bowmen, are the heavy damage dealers. So these guys are up front. They're trying to get to the bowmen first. And then you have your T8s, which are your heavy cavalry, and they're trying to get to the enemy infantry to help do some damage to them first. So again with this, you just need to look at the different tiers, look at what you can produce, and realize, okay, not only do I need a mix-up of the two different types, the heavy and the light cavalry, but then I want to think about, okay, well, if I want to keep my high-tier troop for that type alive, then maybe it's a good idea to send in a couple thousand of lower tiers. Now, depending on your march capacity, will determine how many, say, like T7s or T6s, and all the way down, if you really want to keep going all the way down to your T2s. How many of those guys can you afford to send per march? Now, I don't have any, like T4s or T5s, T6s. I don't have any T7s. But that's just me. I'm lazy. So it's a good idea to have a good breakdown. So when you go into a battle and you want to keep your T8s, your heavy cavalry, and your T10s alive, then you want to throw in some like T9s to keep your T10s alive, and some, I believe it'll be T6s to keep your T8s alive. So you want to be able to mix it up pretty good so that your lower tiers, the cheaper to produce troops, will die first, keeping your higher troops tiers alive. Keep in mind that you need to think about your hospital capacity. If you're going to be going into a battle that you could potentially lose, why bother sending crappy troops to their death when you should be sending your highest possible tiers to go help do some more damage? Put yourself in the best possible situation to win the battle. If it's going to be a close battle, don't send the low tiers. Send the T10, send the T8. Go into battle, and just remember, you'll want to have some more T8s, T10s than you want T8s, but you don't want to ignore T8s altogether. And that's simply just because your T10s have better stats, and they're doing damage to the guys who are doing damage to you. So keep that in mind, and I'll show you in a minute with the troop formations what a good way to arrange it. So let's move on to our bowmen. Again, bowmen. There's two types of bowmen inside of the bowmen. So we have crossbowmen and we have archers. Archers have increased attack against all cavalry and siege troops. Again, ignore siege. Who cares? They're not trying to kill you. They're trying to kill your traps. Then you'll have crossbowmen, and they have an increased attack against spearmen. So these guys are very specialized. They're trying to kill that second line of defense of the enemy's infantry. So if you have a good amount of spearmen and you have a good amount of that heavy cavalry going for the warriors, you're effectively killing every single enemy infantry unit. So you're going up against the warriors up front, then you're going up against the spearmen with your crossbowmen. And then, to seal the deal, you've got the archers to go in and kill all cavalry. Not specialized at all. They'll kill anything they want with cavalry. So, that's why I love bowmen. They're beautiful. Again, you have two types of bowmen, and then you have lower tiers. Well, with this, ignore the lower tiers for the most part. Your bowmen are doing damage. Put them in the best possible situation to do the damage that they can. If you put the highest possible tiers in your march, you're going to be able to do more damage. So, with that being said, we have excuse me for a second. We have our archers and our crossbowmen. I would say put the highest tier possible that you can and ignore anything else, because you have your infantry, you have your cavalry, and then you have your bowmen. Again, if it's a close battle, if it's an easy battle, your bowmen won't be touched, and neither will your siege. So don't worry about having like low tiers to protect your T10s to die first, and they're not going to be going in the hospital unless your T10s go in the hospital and there's some like extra room. Your highest tier troops will be going to the hospital first. And then we have siege. So we have warwolves, and these are distant siege, and then there's the T10s, and these are the towers and rams. The T10 siege is up front. T10 siege goes before your infantry. So, let me ask you this. Why do you want to send siege that go in front of your infantry? They're doing no damage to the enemy troops. They are doing only damage to the opposition trap attack. Whereas you have all these archers shooting at these towers specifically. It does not make sense. These guys are just walking into their deaths. Very expensive troop. That's why I've been putting off my siege for so long. I have 100,000 distant siege. These guys have an increased attack against traps from the back, where they're not getting killed. I don't have to worry about taking my siege from the hospital and putting them back into action, because they never get touched. So why am I, why put myself at risk to lose troops like my T8s where they're up front, when I can just have my T9s from the back doing the damage? So let's go ahead and let's look at the troop formations again, and let's look at how to work this out for an easy battle and a KVK battle. So I'm just going to zero everything out, and I'll do this to the best of my knowledge, and we can go from there. Okay. Okay. So we have our march capacity and we have all of our troops. Now we need to figure out how can I set up my march to utilize the two different types of troops and their abilities. So I'm going to kind of work my way back and forth. I want to make sure that I'm doing this the correct way so that all of you can learn and pick up on your own what to do. So you need to think about it. Who is up front? You have your spearmen and your warriors, but your warriors are in front of the spearmen. So you have the destroyers as your warriors, sorry. And then I believe it is T9 infantry as your spearmen. So you want to have like a healthy amount of the two. Keep in mind, your highest tier troops are still having the better stats, but don't ignore the fact that you want to have spearmen. You want to be able to do that damage to the cavalry. You want to penetrate both lines of the enemy. These guys, your tier 10s up top, these guys are absorbing the damage. These guys are going to be able to last the longest. Don't ignore them. They're extremely important. And then we want to go into our cavalry. So we have the two types of cavalry. And this is where things start getting fuzzy in my head on remembering the cavalry types. Alright, so there's the light cavalry, T10s, and T8s are the heavy cavalry. T8s, the heavy cavalry go up against the warriors, and the light cavalry go up against the bowmen. So we're going to be setting this all up again. Okay, so we have our light cavalry, and these guys are going up against bowmen. So you're being able to penetrate two different lines now. We're penetrating all of the enemy by the time that we get to the cavalry. This is great. Cavalry do some damage. I have a lot of stats for cavalry attacks, so this is good. I want to be able to do some damage. Now, I'm bearing in mind that it's not their job to do the damage. That's why I have bowmen. So I don't want to send too much. As you can see, I have just over half of my total high tier bowmen as I do for cavalry. And then my next highest tier for the cavalry, the heavy cavalry going up against my first line of defense, is so low. So I might only send 15,000. A couple thousand less than my different type of tier 9 for the infantry, just because it's an entirely lower level. Now, I don't want to really forget about cavalry, my tier 9s. I want to keep my tier 10s alive, so I'll send a couple thousand in there because they'll die first before my tier 10s. But then again, this troop formation is for a blowout victory. So just bear that in mind. And then with that comes the bowmen. Pretty much fill up your march capacity. You want to have a good healthy amount. But then don't forget, you've got those ugly ass dudes in the back, those siege. Have a couple, like 10,000, 8 to 10,000, depending on your march capacity. I have 12,000 because I can afford it with my march capacity. I've got Stronghold 31, gives you an additional 10% march capacity. So have your distant siege in there. The guys from the back. The ones that you don't have to worry about rebuilding after the battle's over. And this is pretty much a blowout victory troop formation. Heavy on the infantry. Get that spearman type going. You want to have a good healthy amount of them too. But again, tier 10, higher stats. They're going to be staying alive longer. And have a lot of bowmen, because bowmen are going to be killing everybody. They do not discriminate. And that's beautiful about them. It's 2018, people. Let's save that. Now, let's go into a close battle formation. So, let's exit out of all of these troops. And let's talk a little bit closer about this more complicated march formation, as it's going to be about what to do when you have a close battle. Normally, if there's going to be a close battle, my suggestion, ask your friend who might be a higher level to, help you out. Don't risk your troops. Troops are really expensive. As I personally know, it's costing me 50 million food to heal 20 million power from this past weekend. Shit ain't fun. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get into this march. So let's start with our lower tiers. Again, you need to know what tier troops you have. If you're going to be, well, let's say like you want to build up and then you want to start from there. I'd say don't really go any lower than tier 3s, but if you're going to be doing this kind of march formation, get a better spread than I have. My spread is not a spread. I was working on it, and then I'm like, you know what? I ain't got no time for this. So I stopped. So let's go back and let's look at our tiers troops. I'm just going to look at what I currently have for what I can put into this march. So I have tier 3s. Tier 3s are spearmen. They're the light cavalry guys. I also have tier 7s. Tier 7s are also spearmen. Tier 8s are warriors. Tier 9s are spearmen. So for spearmen, I have tier 9s. I have tier 7s. And I have tier 3s. I'm just going to write this down so I don't forget it for in a second. And then for our warriors, I have T10s and 8s. So let's go ahead and let's go look at stables. Alright, so for stables, we have our cavalry. Tier 10s are the light cavalry. We have tier 10s of those, a good healthy amount. We have tier 9s for light cavalry. Don't know why, but hey, life is what it is. For the heavy, we have tier 8s. Let's see if I have any tier 7s alive. No, I don't. Thank you, friend who killed me. I don't want to face you again in KVK. And then we have more heavy cavalry all the way down at tier 3. How the hell did you stay alive? I don't know. Then, with our range, we have our bowmen. We have tier 10s. Tier 10s, we have archers. Then let's go down the line. I've got some crossbowmen at tier 9. And then keep going down the line. I really don't have anything just because I don't care. They're my bowmen. Even in a close battle, they probably won't take that much damage. So I don't have a spread. So let's go ahead and let's make this formation. All right. So let's zero out of all of this junk, and I'll make a better formation for all of you watching. Okay, so let's start with our infantry. We have the two types, the warriors and the spearmen. Again, warriors are up front. So I also have my highest tier as warriors. So let's go ahead and let's put in a healthy amount. You know, maybe let's go 56,000. We're actually going to go really heavy on infantry for this because infantry are the damage soakers. If it's going to be a close battle, you want to keep your troops alive. You also want to not forget your bowmen. You need to have a good healthy amount of them. You're not going to be losing bowmen, but maybe it's a good chance to kind of risk having lower levels of cavalry so that you could focus more heavily on your bowmen and infantry. Keep your troops alive. Have your cavalry doing some damage to their infantry so that you could get through it, push your way through, and be able to continue on with the damage from the bowmen. So we have our T8s as well for warriors. So let's go ahead and let's put in a healthy amount as well. Let's go 7,500-ish. And this is just for me. I've got 56,000 and 7,500. Maybe let's go 80. Let's go 9,000. You know, it's just a guessing game. I might have to come back and I might have to tweak this because it's really hard to tell what is the right amount, what is not the right amount. Now let's go in and let's take a look at our spearmen. These are going to be right behind. They're also really important troops. So let's go ahead and let's try to go for 30,000. T9s, T7s is a huge step down, so they're not going to be as strong, but we could load up on them. Load up on all these guys. Let's go ahead and let's put in 3,500 T7s. And then for T3s, let's just put in 2,500. 1,000 less than our T7s, just so that these guys die before they get to the rest of my T7s and then my T9s, before things start shaking down pretty badly if they're getting through all these guys. Keep in mind, they're behind my 56,000 T10 infantry, so if it gets that bad, it's not looking good for the battle. Getting into cavalry, we'll have the light cavalry and the heavy cavalry. If I'm not mistaken, our light cavalry is going to be up front first, going up against the bowmen. So you want to have a good healthy amount of these guys, maybe like 40,000. You don't want to have too much because you don't forget that not only are you going to have a breakdown of cavalry, because there's not only two types, but you also want to have a good healthy amount of bowmen in its different tastes. So we've got 41,000 cavalry of warrior, light cavalry, and then we have T8s, and these will be our different type of cavalry. So let's go ahead and let's put in like 17,500. Okay. And then from here, our heavy cavalry goes all the way down to tier 3s. So I'm going to want a good healthy amount just because I don't have any troops in between. Poor design plan by me, yours truly. Thank you very much. And that's going to be covering heavy cavalry. Actually, yeah. And then our light cavalry, we're going to have tier 9s backing up our tier 10s, so we really don't need that many. Maybe like 9,000 or so. These guys are just going to die before the tier 10s. You want to make sure that you put as much into your high tier as possible. If you want, you could go all the way down as like 3,000 for that. I see a lot of people do that for KVK, especially when they don't care about me in the tower and they just want my troops to die. They like to put in like 5,000 tier 10s and then just go all the way down and like have 5,000 of every single type of troop in every tier and all their bowmen. And that's just like the biggest FU to anyone who is actually trying to help, because that's just a sign like, hey, I don't want to risk losing any troops that are valuable to me, but I don't care about you sitting in this tower with me. So when I see that, I know the second that a march starts coming at my tower, I'm just going to back out just because I care about myself. KVK might be about the kingdom, but if I'm putting up someone else as the king, I'm not risking my troops for it. Go find someone else. Because if you're not even going to try to keep my troops alive, why should I try to keep your troops alive? It's just simple as that. I've seen it all the time, but generally, for the most part, it's pretty good. So, putting in the bowmen now, we went through the light cavalry, we went through the heavy cavalry. Bowmen, I only have room for 45,000. So, looking at this, I know I need to trim down somewhere along the lines. So maybe I have too much infantry. So maybe I should cut down to like 50,000. And then I want to bring this up to 50,000, but I can't even do that. So now I realize I need to cut down elsewhere, because now I need tier 9s. Because I need those crossbowmen to do damage to all different types of troops. So let's go to 35,000 on cavalry. I have 9,000 tier 9s in there just to protect my T10s. So maybe I'll cut down on them too. Let's go down there. Now let's see what this can do for me for my tier 9s. I only have 5,200, so now I realize, okay, I have to keep trimming. So we can go down to 8,000 on T8s, but like, these guys are so important. So I'm just going to trim down a little bit, kind of make the numbers a little more even. This is only buying me 3,000. So I'm going to have to figure out where can I cut more. Now looking at my spearmen for infantry, I have T9s and I have T7s. So maybe I don't need that many. So maybe I'll go down like 2,000. Well, now for cavalry, or infantry I should say, why would I need 2,500 T3s to back up T7s to back up T9s? Maybe I only want a couple hundred. Maybe I only want like 750. It's regretful to neglect my infantry at this point, but a tier 3 I'd rather get those T9 crossbowmen in there than with cavalry. It's kind of tough because I only have T3s and T8 cavalry, so I kind of need these guys in there. But at the same time, I need my crossbowmen, so it's just a matter of where do you feel comfortable trimming. And at this point, I don't even have any siege in here, so I'm going to have to cut down even more. So maybe I only want to go like 47,000 on infantry. Maybe I want to cut down my other infantry types. And then let's try to get some more bowmen in there. And then I can fill the rest with siege. And to me, this looks a lot better now. So I'm going to go through it and I'll explain it one more time while I'm doing everything I'm doing. And we can work from there. So we have our warriors. We have T10s and I have T8s. These guys are going to be up front, so you want good healthy amounts of them. They're going to be, I already forgot who warriors attack, so just go back, kind of read, or listen to what I said. And then behind your warriors, you're going to have spearmen. I've got these T9 spearmen right here. I've got some T7 spearmen down the line, and then I have more T3s over right below them. Behind your spearmen, you're going to be having light cavalry. That's going to be my T10s and my T9s. So these guys are going to be going up against your enemy bowmen. Good to have a good amount of these. Good to have a good amount because they're also the front line of your cavalry. Behind them, I've got T8 cavalry. So these guys are going to die behind your T10s and your T9s. So yeah, kind of goes down the line like that. But if you're not working with T10s and T9s, it doesn't work like that. It could work differently. So T8s, they're going up against different enemies. They're behind your light cavalry. And then I've got T3s to back up my T8s, but not really back up because they're going to be in front of the T8s. Your lower tier of a certain type of troop, tier, however you want to word it, they're going to be up front. And then bowmen, I've got the T10s and T9s, different types, killing different types of troops. And that's that. So that will conclude troop formations. I hope everyone enjoyed that segment. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to ask. This is going to be a better video than my previous one, so I hope it helped.